Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to CFO Lunchtime Live. My name is James Solomons, Global CFO at xREF, and I'm delighted to be hosting today's live CFO Roundtable event in partnership with Jedox, a valued supporter of the CFO series. It is great to have them with us today as we cover off on another topic in our Future of Finance series, which today is all about the move of FP&A into xP&A, and a bit more on that in a minute. Before that, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and New Zealand and recognise their unique cultural and spiritual relationships to the land, waters and seas, and their rich contribution to society. We pay our respects to ancestors and elders, past, present, and emerging. Now, Gartner has recently identified the emerging trend of extended planning and analysis, coining the term xP&A, and many of you who follow Gartner have probably already heard about it. And it views its capability as becoming an important market component of the future. They say by 2024, Gartner is expecting FP&A to evolve to encompass xP&A, a strategy where the X denotes breaking down traditional silos between enterprise, financial, and operational planning processes in order to deliver new levels of transformative business value. The X represents that consistent and continuous planning that extends beyond the finance domain into other areas of enterprise planning and analysis. And so over the next hour, we are going to explore with our expert panel, who you can see on screen, how FP&A has assisted finance throughout the last 18 months and how it has changed in the digital age, and debate if it's possible to expand FP&A outside of finance. And finally, we're going to look at how xP&A could become the future of finance. Now, as this is a live event, as our lunchtime lives always are, please do feel free to type in any questions you may have for the speakers into the chat box, and we will endeavour to answer as we go along, or there's always going to be a little bit of time for some Q&A at the end. But you know what, it's enough from me, and it's time to hear from our experts. So we are joined today on screen by Anna Schell, FP&A Manager at Starlight Children's Foundation, Till Brookman, Finance Director at Siemens Health and Ears, and Joe Nicholas, FP&A Manager at G8 Education. Thank you everyone for joining us today. All right, so Anna, let's start with yourself. Starlight Children's Foundation, as an NFP and purpose-led organisation, can you share a little around your role in the FP&A function there, and how has it been supporting the Starlight Foundation through these, and certainly I know for charities, very, very challenging times?
Thanks, James. I started at Starlight about 2.5 years ago, and I came into the organisation in the newly created role of FP&A Manager, really to lead a new FP&A function within Starlight. We're a very small team, so it's just me and a financial analyst. And in addition to what everyone else would do in terms of financial planning and analysis, we also manage an EPM system that underpins all this, which is Jedox. The last 18 months, as everyone knows, has been extremely challenging. There's been a lot of uncertainty around our ability to fundraise and also how we deliver our programs, given that there's been hospital closures and travel closures. As some of you might know, Starlight does both in-hospital programs in the communities, and also wish granting. But the need for children and families is still there. So Starlight still has a purpose that needs to operate during these times. So while there's been challenges sort of on that business side, in an FP&A sense, it's been extremely satisfying. With the focus on the numbers, it's been a great time to ramp up Jedox. And a few highlights of what we've done over the last 18 months is that we've built full suite board reporting. So that's been P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, statement of equity, comprehensive, clear, accurate, timely. We've also built self-service reports for users, so they can go in and just run reports as they need to. And we've also built an 18-month rolling forecast. So we've currently got numbers going out until the end of 2022. And I think this has really given a level of confidence in the organisation around our numbers that probably wouldn't have otherwise been there.
Yeah, fantastic. It's amazing what a good system can do in challenging times. And I'm the treasurer of a local children's charity, and it's a lot smaller than Starlight, but certainly it's been a challenge. But our CEO has managed to still sort of get things done and support the people in need, because just because of the circumstances, it doesn't change the need of families and kids. So thanks for sharing that, and we'll obviously explore a little bit more about how the Jedox system specifically has helped in the last 18 months. So over to you, Till. You're the Finance Director at Siemens Health and Ears, and I'm sure you can give everybody an idea of why the name is like that. And your portfolio also covers procurement, IT, logistics, and supply chain. You've got a team of 70, so a lot larger than Anna's. And healthcare has obviously played a massive role, a heightened role around the world in the last 18 months, right up until minutes ago, of course. I mean, what have been some of those biggest learning curves as a finance leader that you've experienced over this past period? And is this would you say this is going to be a watershed moment for finance leaders to demonstrate their capabilities, especially around FP&A?
Thank you, James. And maybe just one quick comment on our brand, Siemens Health and Ears. It embodies the vision that we want to really make a difference both in healthcare, but we also apply our engineering and pioneering spirit to make it all happen. To your question, was 2020 really for us the watershed moment? And my answer will be probably not so much a watershed moment, but certainly 2020 has highlighted the importance that finance has to play in a role, in particular, to prepare for a crisis. And I would like to give you two examples of how we responded to two crises last year. One not so good, and the other one hopefully a little bit better. At the start of 2020, we all remember the bushfires that engulfed the eastern seaboard, and we were on the beach enjoying Christmas, New Year's, etc. And when I came back later in January to the office and looked at my numbers, I noticed that our volume had really dropped by about 15% versus forecast. And I was very good in explaining the reasons why that has happened, but it was a little bit too late. And I think in finance, traditionally, we always have been very good in explaining deviations to budgets, forecasts, plans, and the likes. What we really need to do though, is provide guidance to the organization what lies on the road ahead. So when COVID hit, fast forward 4 or 6 weeks into February, Australia had the distinct advantage that we were 3 weeks behind everybody else, or at least behind China, South Korea, and Italy. So in February, I hit the dial on my phone to reach out to my colleagues, being part of a global organization in Shanghai and South Korea and Milan, and just peppered them with questions. What is this thing all about? What's happening? How are you impacted? How is the business impacted? How are customers impacted? And in particular, the colleagues from China and South Korea, they already had the analysis and PowerPoint that they could share with me, and they told me, Till, be prepared if you go into lockdowns, be prepared for a 35% drop in volume. So when the Ruby Princess docked in at Circular Quay, I was already in a position to do the scenario planning and the modeling, what that would mean for our organization and what levers we had to pull to get us and see us through it. The advantage of that was by the onset of the crisis, we were confident that we would get through it, not only from the CFO's perspective, obviously, that we would have enough cash in the bank, but we also could send a signal to our employees that we will get them through to the other side, as we needed all hands on deck for the recovery, and that we would not be looking at any restructuring or layoffs. And I think in that time of uncertainty, that was extremely important. And that's the role that finance really, in my view, can bring to the table, that forward guidance, that lookout. And if we can't do that, then we don't really have a place or a seat at the board table. And as my global CFO said last night to me, if we can't do that, we should leave the room, because then we become only a blocker in the business from doing that job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny, you know, particularly in Australia, we've obviously been focused on COVID for for the last 18 months, but we've had bushfires, we've had floods, we've had many things which also impact our businesses, and obviously the pandemic is bad on so many levels and in so many ways, but there's always something that comes along, and it just proves that you need those systems in place to predict and to make change when required. So thanks for enlightening us on the last 18 months. And so Joe, lastly to you for an intro, G8 Education has over 470 early learning centres in the group, and no doubt it's used by many of our audience today. Childcare is deemed an essential service, and rightly so. I think homeschooling proves that childcare is an essential service. I think we all agree that agility has been crucial. Organisations haven't had the time for a lengthy budget process and outdated forecast because things have been changing daily. I mean, can you share the size and scale of G8 and how you and your team have been managing throughout COVID? And like the other two questions to our other awesome panelists, the importance of FP&A in this process.
Yeah, thanks, James. Yeah, I mean, our business, like you said, we're a large childcare business. We're spread across all the major states in the country. And I guess how we see it is we operate in the different local markets across metro and regional areas. So that complexity brings to us, when we're looking at those local area markets, what those needs of those customers are in those separate markets, and understanding how they may be different. COVID has certainly presented a challenge to us in FP&A. And I guess the real push, I guess we got sort of a year or so ago was being able to provide the sort of real-time data, real-time insights that we could, the business could be agile enough to react to. So I'll just give you an example. I guess childcare, it's a little bit like hotels business. So we look, it's kind of how many children in the centres at one time, how many attendances we get. So during that early part of COVID, we really saw our attendance levels drop, obviously, particularly in those states and LGAs that were affected by lockdowns. So just being able to be really agile with our data and be able to present that data to see what was happening almost on a daily basis, and then we could enable our support office functions to work with our families and team members to get through those periods where it was very, very challenging and very different to our normal sort of normal customer behaviour.
Yeah, it definitely, it's just been for all of us, I think, today and everyone listening in today. Which, by the way, everybody, we're at over 300 attendees today, which is a new record for the Lunchtime Live. So thank you for everyone joining us. I can see we're actually getting close to 330. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, Joe. I think the impacts it changes, and certainly in Sydney at the moment, lockdown LGAs, are causing all sorts of issues. But definitely, again, the importance has certainly been the case, and certainly at XREF, in the last, we were able to move from a loss to a profit in the last 12 months and turn a cash flow burn into a small profit for the first time, thanks to our planning solutions and the team behind it. So I think for many businesses, potentially COVID has given them an opportunity to rethink and be focusing on how that process works. And it also absolutely stress the importance of that function to the businesses if they didn't already know it. So thanks for the intros. I think it set the scene really well. For the next sort of period, we're going to talk about the future of FP&A. First question is for you, Till. Many finance leaders are moving away from managed spreadsheets. What are some of the benefits of a modern enterprise planning solutions, and how do these help finance professionals become strategic advisors to their businesses?
Very good question, James. Look, I think it's fair to say that Excel has served us quite well over the years, and we've got quite used to it, and we really got to love it. Having said that, today we are confronted with such vast amounts of data points not just in the finance arena, from our ERP enterprise resource planning solutions, but also from the operational side of the business. And where the modern enterprise planning solutions really come in is that they have the power and the capacity, unlike Excel, to connect all those dots and build the bridge between our long-term strategic planning and the more operational day-to-day planning. And as the world is changing faster and faster, we have to be more agile, more flexible with our approach to forecasting and planning. And tools like Jedox, what we are using, are the way to go, and Excel is certainly out of its depth there. So it is really about providing us now the tools and the means to do better planning at different or across different levels of the organizations, and also then with multiple dimensions.
Yeah, that's it's very true. You know, I think Excel is a fantastic tool, and like Jedox, there are other solutions out there that sort of still use that as a strong platform. But the vast volume of data that we have to consume these days, can lead that to be an issue with a spreadsheet. Staying with you, Till, you implemented Jedox during the first COVID lockdown and started with one of the more complex modules. What obstacles were you finding with your finance processes, and how did you prioritize which one or which area to sort of strengthen or beefen up first? You know, what was the reasoning, and how did you get to that decision?
Richard, if you maybe, sorry, James, if you allow me to maybe, for the benefit of the audience, quickly explain the solution that we have implemented at Siemens Healthineers. I mentioned earlier already that part of our business is to provide pathology labs with the little tests for, let's say, blood tests or urinalysis. So it's a high volume consumable type business. And we were looking for a better way to do our forecasting and planning for this business. And we have chosen Jedox. And you're right, there are other good solutions out there. There are various reasons, and I don't want to go into that why we selected Jedox in the end, to build us a predictive model that uses both historic data, so past trends, and combines that with the information and data from our CRM tools, namely our sales or opportunity funnel, to build us a 6-quarter rolling forecast. And the reason why we needed that, and we struggled with traditional tools, in the test volume market, we see seasonality trends. If there's a flu season, you see higher uptake. During summer, it drops off a little bit. And something like a modern enterprise planning solution or predictive solution can take that seasonality into account and help us to project that into the future. So that's what the vision was, what we wanted to implement. And the biggest obstacle really was we were about to go live, not to go live, to start the implementation around March, April 2020, right at the onset of the pandemic, when we all went into lockdowns and worked from home. And the biggest challenge really was the knowledge transfer. So our idea was we would utilize Jedox consultants to help us with the implementation, and have them, a team of Siemens Healthineers colleagues, working with those consultants, look over their shoulder to get the knowledge transfer happening, and eventually we can run on our own feet. And that was extremely challenging at the time. The other challenge, also probably partially due to the lockdown, was we kind of then built that in isolation in the finance team without really consulting with the business. And after 3 months, when we had that solution, what we thought was a good product and ready, and presented it to the wider organization, the feedback was a little bit underwhelming, and we had to go back to the drawing board and start all over again. So that's what can happen if you're not in a room and have to work that out all remotely via Teams or Zoom. Have we lost you now? I think James asked also one question then on the prioritization, or why we picked that area. So maybe let me comment briefly on that. That our diagnostics business was in a bit of a challenging time, and we had to do some restructuring. I had to reduce my finance team for that business from 2 to 1, and we saw that modern planning solutions, enterprise planning solutions, could really help us to ease the burden here a little bit on that one individual. He had to work extremely hard initially, and here we were able to automate some of his work, moving it from Excel into Jedox.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I dropped off there, everybody. My go-to webinar died for a bit. So yeah, with the benefit of hindsight, I mean, what do you see as some of the most common mistakes CFOs make, and would you do anything differently on the future technology implementations, Till?
In hindsight, and 2020 is always good. In hindsight, we probably would not have started with probably the most complex, or what is the most complex tool out of the Jedox portfolio with the analytics engine. It would have been better to start with something where you can get some quick wins, prove to the organization the value of these tools, and then build on from there. We picked a quite challenging task, and it took us longer to implement. It took us longer to get it right. And on that process, we almost lost parts of the organization. And it required them some interference from my side to really keep going and make it work. So that's probably something I would recommend to anybody who is embarking onto this journey. Don't pick the hardest nut to crack, but start small, and then build up from there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that one. It's certainly pick the easy wins to begin with, and build that process or build that momentum. But sometimes you've just got to jump all in. So thanks for sharing that, Till. That was good. And over to you. You know, within the CFO Lunchtime Live discussions, we like to explore the realities in finance, and things don't always go to plan. When you first joined Starlight, the tech wasn't working as it should be. How did you turn it around and not only get it working, but make it something that your whole organization now loves?
Yes, it was. I can remember in my interview, the head of finance did this thing, and she was, how long things were taking to load. Like, the expectations of Jedox was that there would be a really tool to bring in and solve a lot of the problems within Starlight. And I think it was a misunderstanding on the organisation side, that it was really not there to replicate our existing systems and processes and reporting. It had a whole lot of new functionality that we could use. So I was lucky that I'd been a user of these systems for at least 15 years. And also I was able to draw on different aspects of my background, whether that was business partnering, technical background, a finance understanding. I think all of that, you need to have that knowledge around these tools. I really spent my first 3 months building a picture of what had to be done differently at Starlight. So I'd come from very big organisations, big budgets, lots of IT support, and suddenly we had to make this work in the Starlight context. So it's very much about asking users about their roles. What were their information needs, and what barriers did they see to be able to use finance information and manage budgets within their areas? I looked at org charts, I looked at annual reports, like how did Starlight see itself? I also looked at all the source systems that were pulled into Jedox, and also how we structured our data, because we had one dimension, but it was 2 million records that we wanted to bring into Jedox.
Wow, yeah.
I know, that would never have worked, hey? We also engaged a new support partner who we've had I just wanted to build a very robust relationship with them, so that they can give us sound advice, but they can also say that's not going to work as well. So I think it's just having that sort of curious mindset. And once I'd done that sort of 3 months of investigation and been able to explain both within finance and to the service provider what we really needed, from there it's really been a team effort, and that's why the system has succeeded. Financial control updated SAP, so that meant all the payroll system was updated, our Concur system was updated with new fields. Our financial analyst has built amazing reporting and really been tenacious about getting, like, for instance, cash flow reporting working. I put a lot of emphasis into the soft aspects around Jedox, so communications and training and coaching and just getting people to see how this could help them in their day-to-day roles.
Yeah.
And I even created some fun training videos with a captain from the Sydney Children's Hospital last year, and they just became the talk of Starlight because fancy a captain coming and working with someone in finance. It just broke down some barriers. So I also made sure I actively answered all the queries. I don't think there's anything that beats responsiveness. And also, because we had really thought about what we wanted Jedox to do, people could go in and use standard reports and see how they were relevant for their roles without having to do a lot of customization or menus. And that has worked well.
Yeah.
So I'm in the happy position where I have advocates now in the business, and I hear along the grapevine how wonderful they think Jedox is. So I don't have to be there saying, please come and use a finance system. I have business users who say, I remember what it was before, and now this is how it is now. And they have a smile on their face. So it's really created a lot of momentum. And that breaks down barriers, because as much as people talk amongst themselves how they use Jedox, it means that I'm not constantly pushing something onto other people.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and I like the idea of using the captain. That's
it was really fun.
That's good. It gives him a bit of change as well to talk about how to use an accounting software, which is really good. We've got a question, Anna, and you might have sort of answered this, but I'll ask it specifically. So one of our attendees is interested to hear what tools Anna and Starlight are using to implement rolling forecasts and self-service reports. So obviously Jedox is there. I mean, maybe there's something specific about the different parts of the
Yeah, we use Jedox Web. So a lot of the users in Starlight don't use Excel, and I think that was the first challenge I had, that the finance and Excel is a challenge for them. So while the finance team does use Jedox Excel add-in for a lot of reporting and for our analysis, we've set up a lot of the basic reports in Jedox Web for our users. So they use their single sign-on log, they have a home page, they have a nice report that comes up in Starlight Colors, very simple menus, and they can click through and say, I'm the program manager in Adelaide, this is how much I've spent month to date, year to date, and it's all very simple.
Okay, fantastic. So just one last small question from me. I mean, where are you in the journey? What is the next phase for this sort of process of improvement?
Well, I'm feeling much more comfortable. For a long time, I felt very uncomfortable. So I think it's a consolidation phase where I think, we go into each month end, each forecast process feeling like we've got the tools there. We'd like to do much more. So we'd like to add in more forecast tools so people can automatically come in and say, for our non-office-based staff, this is how the shifts work, and easily build a forecast with that. We would love to build more dashboards, more graphical features. I think that would be really good, rather than presenting the reports look good, but they're still number-based. And also we're implementing a new CRM system. So we really need to join the dots around our revenue planning. So I can see that that's probably will keep us busy over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's almost, once you get that bug, it just continues, and there's always something to improve. So thanks for sharing that. Joe, over to you now. You implemented Jedox planning solution to improve the forecasting and budgeting process about 3 years ago. And in that time, your FP&A teams have gone from 2 to 9. How has the team evolved, and what are you able to do now that you could not do, say, 18 months ago?
Yeah, I guess over that time, we've developed our analytical capability over the last couple of years. Through the use of technology, and also through the actual people we brought in, the skilled analysts. So those two, combining those two has really taken us a long way forward. We've implemented Power BI as our sort of standard reporting visualization tool, and And then I guess coupled with those skills in the team, we've been able to build some really sort of complex reports and do some really good ad hoc analysis. So the team have really shown their value for the use of data and be able to provide those valuable insights. We've got a lot of rich data available to work with, and the skill set in the team combined with that technology is be able to get the most out of it. Jedox, at a similar time, like you said, we implemented that. That's really taken us forward. Imagine sort of trying to budget a forecast for like 470 sites is quite challenging. So being able to have the tool to be able to capture those inputs from our operational teams, bring that all back up, and we can slice and dice it pretty easily by state, all the different categories we want to do, and the reporting function has been really great for us in terms of being able to analyze performance of our centres in many different ways. So it's been really good for us.
Yeah, it's certainly, specifically, obviously COVID is the theme. It's a very volatile period, and certainly, I mean, maybe not childcare, but my kids haven't had to go to after school care since I've been working from home, and certainly in the case of childcare, long day care, working from home might not require a family to have as much need for childcare. How has the tools and the FP&A function and the tools it has been able to really assist you guys? Because I'm sure there's been an impact. Where have you been able to show those insights to be able to make those decisions?
Yeah, I mean, COVID has certainly changed our customer behaviour, and be able to see that quickly in the data through analysis has been really invaluable. We've definitely seen a split of our centres, very different behaviour depending on where the centre is located. So just being able to see that through the analysis and look at obviously the performance of the centres has been really invaluable. Also, during the height of the pandemic last year, our business model was constantly changing. So there was a period there of free childcare for families. So that obviously impacts our revenue, but offset by additional government subsidy in that sort of early part of that period. So having Jedox there was really good for us. So we were able to build out our forecast model, at that individual centre level, and really build that bottom up and aggregate it up and be flexible enough to sort of to work with that changing environment. We're able to develop a lot of scenario planning depending on what was going to happen next after that free period was over. So just being able that flexibility to be able to change some inputs in the model and see what those outcomes were on our revenue and our cost base, and plan and take decisions was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's not a political forum, but many would see that the governments have had to make things up as they go along, and the resultant impact is it impacts on grants and certainly the free childcare, and you lose it from one hand, you get it from another, and how all that works, and definitely a rigid system just could not handle whether it's a big business or a small business. I think that's sort of been the theme up until this point of our discussion today, is that agility in the whatever system you have has got to be there, because things change quickly, even when it's normal times, and then when you've got something overlaying like a pandemic, you are impacted by decisions that are completely out of your control. So that agility and the ability to adapt and remodel and reforecast is critical. So, I mean, Till, a question for you now. I imagine as you were considering undertaking a new finance project, one of the things top of mind would be to ensure minimal business disruption in a time when obviously there's already a lot happening in the world. How important was speed of adoption and the change management process? And I think you touched on this a bit earlier. And how important was that change management process around starting a new implementation process like this?
The answer to that question, James, has probably changed over time. So initially, when we rolled out Jedox, sitting in the C-suite, we had our annual budget around the corner. I was pushing very hard to have a speedy implementation and get my hands onto onto the new process and onto the new tool. What I had to learn though, and I made that point earlier, is if you develop this in isolation without proper consultation with the business and without bringing the business onto the journey, and Anna explained it beautifully earlier on, you're not going to really win this change, and you are really behind on the change management front. And that's what we had to experience. So we really had to take the foot off the accelerator a little bit, slow down, bring everybody onto that journey, and making sure that all the needs of the business are or have been considered and addressed, and then actually making it a success. So
yeah, look,
today I would put change management definitely over speed in terms of importance.
Yeah, look, and I think and Siemens as a group, and Siemens, it's a massive organisation, and there is I would my team at xREF, or my business at xREF, there's only 65, 70 of us, so it's a lot easier to bring in change, but still the process is just as important in that buy-in. Obviously, you could maybe use Starlight Children Foundation captain to help next time, and maybe make a donation. But I think certainly
on that idea.
Certainly in a business as large as yours, there has to be a level though of sometimes you do have to go down that path of making decisions that sometimes might not be agreed upon. I mean, would you say that's the case, and it's finding that balance?
Yeah, the other aspect, if I may, James, that we had to consider here, being the Australian subsidiary of a global company, you obviously don't want to create an island solution when the rest of the world is heading in a different direction. So we also had to bring our global head office onto this journey. We were quite set on Jedox, but if global would have gone with a very different approach, we would have been totally disconnected. And it was good to see, and it was worth the time for the extra weight to have global on board with this to make this all happen. Now, that may not apply to just Australian or Australian-New Zealand entity, but if you're in this wider environment, it's extremely important to achieve that alignment.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I've got a question from one of our audience, and I will read it out because I'm sure our Jedox partners that are on today would like to hear this. Jedox sounds like a great tool. Wondering if either Anna or Till, or even you, Joe, have had experience within FMCG and could see this tool working in a highly promotional-driven industry. So, if you can answer that one, good. If you'd like to defer, then more than welcome. But certainly, somebody there that's not from your industries is seeing potential for a solution like Jedox.
I have experience at Lion Nathan, so I would say it's a big yes.
Go. Till, anything to add, Joe?
I think with the scale, just having that sort of scale, I think Jedox really helps. So I think just its ability to be able to do things at scale. I think I agree with Anna. It's a big yes.
Okay.
Yeah, also a big yes from my side, and not really anything further to add.
All right, no, that's good. There you go, Jedox. There's a good result there with that question. So Joe, back onto you. Jet Education have a strong finance foundation, and this is always scary with your CEO, COO, and chair all having CFO or accounting backgrounds. It actually happens to be the case with our board at xREF. So you can't get things passed. Having the responsibility for budgeting and forecast processes for the group, delivering those regular reports to the exec and leadership team and the board. What are the, I guess then, what is the most important things you're looking for in how a solution like Jedox can help deliver that information when, as I said, you've got people that know the numbers. You can't put a pretty graph there that can tell a different story. What are those critical important things you're looking for?
Yeah, we've got a number of, I guess, key metrics that we measure regularly around team operations, customer, as well as financial metrics, as well as using Jedox to develop those financial targets. Due to the way we build our forecast, it also develops some of our key operational metrics as well, just based on I guess how we build up that forecast, it also develops those operational metrics, and that's right down to our individual center level. So we've got the targets all sort of set there. We then link Jedox quite nicely into our Power BI platform to analyze performance against these metrics by site for operations at a more aggregated level, where we can present that to ELT, our executive team, or the board. So it really works quite nicely, Jedox and Power BI in terms of that respect. So yeah, we can develop those targets, those metrics in Jedox, and like I say, then measure performance, and also Power BI enables that presentation then to the board.
Yeah, fantastic. I think the key thing is understanding what drivers and what metrics they want to see, and then being able to put it into that one place and giving them that easy access. And on that topic, Anna, increasingly FP&A's most valued skill is turning data and facts into a story, and it's something I'm very passionate about in humanizing the numbers. So putting this into context and influencing change, how important is finance storytelling for you in Starlight's in your role at Starlight?
That's a great question for someone from Starlight. So storytelling is part of our DNA at Starlight. It's the way that we believe we connect as human beings and we have impact. So storytelling is one of our focus areas. And I think FP&A is all about storytelling. It's all about achieving organisational financial goals and setting the scene for what we present, which isn't our numbers, it's the organisation's numbers. And I think we do that through other people, and also that we share a common organisational language. So we're able to translate what people are telling us. I'd like to give you an example around this with a recent forecast. So I was talking to one of our national program managers, and she told me a story about how in the last quarter of this year, the idea was to start trialling a program in the Hunter region. It was based on another program. It was dependent on a donor funding this program and what it would look like. And at no point did we talk about department codes, account codes, FTE numbers. She just set the scene. And within about 15 minutes, I'd scribbled some numbers down saying, so what you're talking about is something like this. And then we put that in the forecast, and our forecast became not about $20,000 extra spend or whatever the number was. It was about how Starlight was increasing its impact in the Hunter region, trialling this new program. She was telling that story within her functional team, and I was telling that story to the board. So it was about what we were doing with that number, as opposed to how a cost line had changed, how a number in our financial system had changed. So I think storytelling really needs to be about what we can do, but also how we work with our internal and our external stakeholders as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And go on, Till, go on.
Yeah, I would like to just add to that, or echo what Anna has just been saying. I do see the ability to tell a story as the most important skill of a finance leader or a finance organization in the future. It's more important than understanding how Jedox works or how Excel works. It's translating the financial information, and in future not just the financial information, but the connection between financial data and operational data into a story, what that means for the business and to the individual member of the business, how they can contribute to the overall goal, overall aim. And that ability is something I think many of us still have to learn, and where finance can play a major role.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you were describing then, Anna, was an ROI on that spend, but you didn't mention that term once. And for people that aren't from our world, those acronyms, they mean nothing. So it's definitely that's the case. So just staying with you, Anna, in terms of the role of CFOs and finance teams, the business is looking them to be critical value adders, but sometimes they can be seen as blockers. What do you see as the areas of frustration in organisations with where finance leaders get it wrong? I guess that sort of That's sort of that
Yeah,
question I'm sort of
yeah, I
getting at.
suppose this is a very interesting question. For one of the things I think is that finance isn't quite sure whether we're a service provider or a business partner, and sometimes we can get caught in that. So we want to please everyone in the organisation by doing everything financially right, what we traditionally have always done. But if the organisation asks us to be a business partner, then that can be a bit uncomfortable for people, because we can challenge, we can be assertive, we can sometimes say, this is what we think, and it's not always, we have to have the space to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I also think we underestimate how intimidating finance is for people. So I work with people who don't even have personal budgets. So numbers are very challenging, and they're great with people. They're great with managing people. They're wonderful in the program space. But if I talk to them about an accrual, I would lose them straight away. So I think we just have to be quite humble about our knowledge and just be very approachable. So I think that's really important. And I also think we have to be clear what we value. So I think sometimes we, for instance, would value an audit background for someone that we were going to recruit, as opposed to someone who might have the ability to build relationships or to influence or to grow as a leader. So I think within finance, we have to really look to ourselves and think about the people that we're recruiting, that we're working with, and how we further develop them. So I think we really need to look to perhaps a more diverse workforce within finance, people who are creative and curious and can get across that sort of, have that financial knowledge, build the business knowledge, build the IT knowledge, and just pull that all together.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very good point. My first hire into my team at XREF was he obviously had done accounting, but he'd been a trainer while he was studying at Novotel, and he had done rosters and trained. And I knew in a business like ours that was very new to systems and processes and governance and diligence, having just listed, he was going to have to spend a lot of time training, and his training background has proved to be absolutely critical in getting those things across. So definitely that diverse range is key. Now, Till, you mentioned this a bit earlier. We were talking about that multinational versus the island of Australia. You know, the progressive CEO, CFO approach at Siemens, you know, where finance has been considered a business partner and strategic advisor for some time. Is this a European trend that Australia really needs to catch up with? And certainly anyone today that's watching from a multinational, you mentioned before, what's your experience of pushing that global change from Australia?
I'm not sure, James, whether it's a European trend. I haven't really been working and living in Europe for the last 20 years, even though my accent suggests that I just came out of Germany. But I think it's a bit unique to Siemens, and Siemens has really, and Siemens Healthineers as part of the Siemens Group companies, they've really embodied that idea of finance being that business partner. So across all levels of the organization, we have always the CEO or the business leader and a finance partner at their side. And that can be at a division level, that can be at a business unit level, that can be at a country level or regional level, etc. And the expectation really here is that those two make the decisions around the business together, with finance advising, guiding, being that strategic advisor, and the CEO having that final say. It's not to say that every time you have to agree on the same outcome. You can have different opinions, but ultimately the CEO has a final say. But what is quite important here is that the CFO or the finance partner within Siemens Healthineers is not reporting to the CEO. We have a separate reporting line up the organization into our global CFO. So that certain level of independence gives us also then the flexibility that we can also challenge the business and have a different opinion, not to cause conflict, but to really make sure that we look at problems or issues from different angles and to the best outcome of the business. And that's basically what Siemens and Siemens Healthineers is about.
Yeah, very interesting. It's definitely, you know, a bit like what you were saying, Anna. You know, there has to sometimes still be that independence in the finance line, but they also need to be working very closely, because we're trained to be those devil's advocates and the pessimists sometimes, but we also need to not be seen as the toe cutters who are then scared. Everyone's scared of us in the business. Joe, I've got a question from the audience. Fairly simple question, I think. You're mentioning Power BI. Is Power BI within the Jedox platform you're using, or is it sort of outside of it?
No, it is outside of it. It is outside of it, but we kind of use them. We do interlink them, so we're moving data between the two. So sort of our forecast and budget will move into Power BI so that we can measure for those sort of key metrics, key KPIs we do, and then and vice versa. If we move some data into operational data into Jedox, we kind of use, but they are separate to answer the question, I guess.
Okay, no, that's good. Now this is a question for you, Anna, but I might open it to the floor, and then the rest of our questions are actually for everybody on the call today. How important is creating a culture that's open to change? And as we talked about, finance can sometimes have that inwards focus on the finance needs. How do you change the focus to what the business needs? So Anna, you can go with this one first.
Yeah, so FP&A is a place where you can't be scared of uncertainty. The only perfect budget is one you've done retrospectively. So you're constantly dealing with uncertainty and a huge amount of data as well. So you have to be able to think. You can't see things in black and white terms. I think that's the first thing. So having that appetite for change is actually fundamental, and I think also having the belief that change is for the better as well. So not seeing it as a negative thing, which can make you see things in a different way, but when it's seen in a positive way, ideas are generated, people can apply their skills, their knowledge, their expertise. You welcome people within their insight, you bring that into your thinking as well. But I actually think it's broader. I think it's not necessarily what finance needs or what the business needs, but it's what the organisation needs. And this is one of the things I did quite early on at Starlight. I thought FP&A was a new concept and people didn't really understand what it could do. So I put together a sort of a vision, and I said it was to help others optimise organisational impact. So it made it really clear that I was here to help, but our ultimate goal was around organisational impact. And I was really conscious that there were people in other areas who really had that role. And then I supported them with high quality financial information analysis and support to do that, and have simple processes with that. So that sort of became a bench line for me when I was if I was to spend a week on a spreadsheet for someone, I would go back to that vision and say, oh, I don't really think that's going to optimize the impact. I could be helping you in a different way. So I really think it's sort of moving that conversation up and looking at it from an organisational view.
Yeah, Till or Joe, do you have anything to add around that? How do you change that focus to what the business needs rather than that from inward focus?
I'm not so sure whether I need to change too much, but we make a really strong point within Siemens Healthineers that finance needs to have a good understanding of how the business is run. So it's not just about the financials. Anybody in finance needs to be able to put them into context. And for me, the greatest compliment I always can get from the business on the performance of finance is if one example, my finance head in New Zealand, our account managers in New Zealand like to take him out to a customer when there's an economic buyer involved. Or the discussion is with the customer's CFOs, because he can have that conversation, can support the business and can support sales to win us business and come up with innovative and creative solutions. And this is just one example. I could give you many, many more across the business. And I think if finance can't really understand the drivers in the business and what the business needs, we will not be even able to do 50% of the job we should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, anything to add?
I would just agree what the guys are saying. Really, yeah. Just I guess that business partnering with the extended functions in the business is so important, and understanding how they work and how we interact. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're rolling into a couple of final questions, and this one this one is for all of you to jump in and chime in with some ideas. So it's sort of, does FP&A need a new mindset? And the days of spreading around the spreadsheet templates and linking subsidiary sheets into master sheets is over. And we've discussed FP&A really requires that efficient financial process, processes the acumen, storytelling. And you would say that, where we are now with technology, we're in that golden age for FP&A, where opportunities are really there. What do each of you think will be the game-changing technologies that's going to further transform that FP&A function as we move forward? What do you think is really going to shift the needle, I guess? Joe, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I think I guess for us, we've got a lot of really good data. So I think using some of the tools that are out there around AI and machine learning is probably sort of looking at the next steps for us particularly. So and I guess just being embracing those sort of new technologies and then tapping into those insights that you can get from the data using some of the new technology. And I think as we've been saying, the guys have been saying particularly is around the real value added piece for us, I think is taking that and then transforming that into those insights and the story and what it means, and then ultimately obviously what we do with it is the sort of important bit, and then being part of that discussion around what's the actions, what's the recommended actions.
Yeah, absolutely. Till, your thoughts on the game-changing technologies?
Yeah, I think we actually do have now the technologies that we really need to make this all work. But as Joe rightly said, it is now the ability to tell the stories and translate those data, translate the insights into meaningful information for the business. And that is probably the biggest mindset change that we still need to transition through in finance. I dare say many organizations are probably already there, but there's still more what we can do. And that's not just a topic that can be addressed by technology. This is also change management and people management.
Yeah, absolutely. Anna, your thoughts on those technology pieces?
I agree with what's been said, but I also think there's a lot of potential for our users to have information at their fingertips, and they don't necessarily need to have a financial background, but the information will be put in such a way that they can really understand that and make decisions for their jobs very easily. So I think that we can have very engaged users, and that can only increase our effectiveness in FP&A.
Yeah, and you would build from that, and certainly across all the things that you've all just added. I think the key success, in my opinion, is when the business then has the expectation that information's there and it's reliable, and that and sometimes dirty data is an abundance in any finance team. And once you've unlocked that and made that right, the expectation they can rely upon that data to make their business decisions. The importance of our role is no longer just in arrears, it's certainly looking forward. Now, on that topic, we've got another question from the audience, and one of our attendees has read an article many moons ago claiming the budget is dead, promoting rolling forecasts instead. What do you guys think of that proposition, that everything should be rolling forecasts? Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to go first, and I'm now speaking against the common view at Siemens Healthineers, but I'm an absolute fan of rolling forecasts and having that flexibility. The world is changing so fast these days. An annual budget cycle is too long. And also, if I look at the effort that we put into our annual budgets at Siemens Healthineers, we start sometime in late March, and by the time we get around to the final forecast, it's November or early December. It keeps many people busy, but you can't claim that you are really on top of the latest development. So what we have done here in Australia is really trying to incorporate the annual budget process into our rolling 6-quarter forecast, and kind of kill two birds with one stone. But I'm a big believer in rolling forecasting rather than annual budgeting.
Anna, what do you think?
Okay. Yes, I think rolling forecasts are the way to go. I mean, at the moment, it's just lifting up 12 months of our rolling forecast will become the budget. So you don't have to do two pieces of work, but it would be really nice to roll that forward. I can also always see a role for budgets, though. I think like a large government organisation I can't see a state government moving away from annual budgets from all its agencies and departments and things like that. So I think we also have to be realistic that it has its place, budgets, but where possible, rolling forecast.
Yeah. Joe?
Yeah, agree. Really, yeah, we've just implemented 18-month rolling forecast. That's kind of fairly new for us. But probably like Hannah said, I feel like the budget's probably still got a bit of a place. It's kind of like a stake in the ground that you kind of still want to refer to. The issue is, as we saw last year, for example, that things change so quickly that it becomes a lot of work for not much value. But still feel like there's a bit of a place for budget, but definitely the rolling forecast is the way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I want to, a last question for you all. We're just on 1 o'clock, so we're going to go a little bit over, but thank you everyone for staying with us. And we've talked about this on the CFO series and the CFO Lunchtime Lives many times over the last couple of years, but will smart technology replace smart CFOs? And really that comes to the question of, what skill sets and capabilities will finance and FP&A require in the future? And what are you doing now to prepare individually, and what do you say to our attendees and our junior finance leaders and even our senior finance leaders that are with us today? What should they be doing to prepare to make sure they aren't replaced by smart technologies? So Till, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, my argument against this is always technology would not have predicted the COVID crisis, and if you wouldn't have had people in the end to make the right choices and make the right decisions how to deal with it, we probably would not all be where we are now. But technology plays an important role, and the advice I could only give anybody is get your head around it, get your head around digitalization and the technologies that are available to us today. Really invest into that capability of storytelling and translating financial data and information, and also now operational data and information, into what that means for the business and how we can use that to grow the business. And last but not least, I do believe there is an important role for finance. We can continue to be that strategic advisor to the business and really make a big difference to the success of a business. And we should really embrace that and enjoy it. It's lots of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, what's your thoughts on the skill sets and capabilities we're going to need?
Yeah, I mean, I really think there's a place for both. The enhancing the skill sets of the team and the people, and also the technology. And I think it's exciting what's happening in the future. But I think from an analyst point of view, I guess the key role an analyst will play will be, well, what are those, being curious. I think like Hannah touched on earlier, having that curious mindset. What are the right questions to ask, and then using that technology to get to the answer to those questions. And then that storytelling that we talked about is, that's the bit where I think we can play as sort of human side of it to add those insights and get to those recommendations. I think working together with the technology, I think is quite exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And Anna, last thought for you on the skill sets we need.
Yeah, I think technology is going to have an increasing role of replacing processing. So we're going to end up with very high level roles, and that requires critical thinking, it requires curiosity, and really an open mind as to where your career will take you. So I think it just needs people who are very open, and I just come back to diversity. We need diversity in finance. So we're representative of our organisations, but also our customers. So then we will be really effective with harnessing the technology that is increasingly available to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got space about another minute or so. Is there anything any of you would like to leave as one final piece of advice or action for FP&A to take away today? Anything you want to tell that you've been dying to say as we've gone through the questions, or anything that's sprung to mind? Anna, why don't you go first?
Yes, I'd like to say explore what FP&A could potentially look like in your organisation, whether that's people, processes or technology, that there are constraints, but you can work around that. And it's worth doing because it's crucial to managing uncertainty at the moment.
Yeah, very, very good points. Till, what do you think?
Yeah, from my side, I think we covered a lot of good ground, James. But that people aspect is an area I would also like to highlight, that we need to be mindful that this is also a bit of a transition, and keeping everybody on that journey, taking them along, is also our role as CFOs and finance leaders, and we shouldn't overlook that.
Absolutely. And Joe, last word goes to you.
Lucky last. I would say, I guess my final thoughts are, yeah, keeping abreast of the technology and how it can benefit your business, making sure you know fully across what's changing in that world, but then also building your team to embrace that new technology. You know, just being hungry to learn and learn new skills around the technology and being adaptable to change.
Absolutely. And that is a great wrap up to the end of our webcast today. A link to the session will be emailed to everybody that's joined us within 24 hours. And I do encourage you all to rewatch it. As Till said, we've covered a lot of ground and there's been some fantastic discussions. And really, it's raised some important and interesting trends beginning to emerge as we continue to explore the future of finance generally. Thank you to Richard and CFO Series for inviting me once again to be MC for today's Lunchtime Live. I hope everybody has enjoyed the discussions as much as I have. Thank you to our partner for the CFO Lunchtime Live today, Jedox. Thank you for your continued support. Anna, Till and Joe, I certainly hope you've enjoyed sharing your observations and experiences with us today. So thank you for making the time to be with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome. Thank you, James.
And lastly, to all of our attendees, thank you once again for joining us over lunch today, and we do look forward to seeing you at the next CFO Series event, either online or face-to-face sometime again soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.